was keeping stock of his. He knew exactly where he was. The Israelites' army was not going to defeat him because of their perspective. You will get defeated if your perspective is not focused on God. Amen? Amen. We're going to go forth. Now, we go to verse 28, and it's going to tell David's big brother's perspective of him. It says, and Eliab, his eldest brother. Now, this is the one, remember, that the priest thought, oh, surely he's going to be the king. See, you can't even, you need to make sure you stay tied to God so you can get God's perspective. Because even the priest, even the pastor, cannot tell you what your perspective is or what it should be. I don't care who it is. If it's not Jesus Christ, if your spirit doesn't identify with it and they're telling you, their idea or their opinion of something, do not receive it. You need to be so tied to God that if God says it, it can be something that you can't fathom, but yeah, I can see myself doing that. You should be in agreement with it. That's when you take on and agree with the perspective. Eliab was not the one. Eliab also is given his perspective of David. Eliab has a jealous spirit. When your perspective can be clouded by whatever issues you have. Jealous spirit, you speak out of the lens of your own eyes. If you have a jealous spirit, your lens are clouded, and you can seek out everybody else who's got a jealous spirit because you're looking out your own lens. If you ever hear somebody forever accusing somebody of being jealous, look at her. They might have a jealous spirit. Whatever lens you got, you speak from. If you got a lying spirit, you'll speak out and you can identify, oh, he's lying. What you speak out from the color of your own lens. Eliab had a jealous spirit. He says at verse 28, it says, and Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. He heard David speak unto the men. And Eliab's anger kindled against David. And he said, why comest thou down here? Why did you even come down here? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? When somebody's trying to come against you, but they're talking to you, and you should not receive it, one of the things they might do is try and knock you down. If you're around somebody, and I see women do this all the time. Guys do it too, but women do it a lot. Your best friend, but your best friend knocks you down every day, left, right. Your best friend ain't your best friend. Your best friend really is not your best friend, and you need to get away from that because you don't need to be going around and being around somebody who every day is knocking you down. Because that's not good for you, and that's their perspective of you. Their perspective, they're probably looking out of the lens of their own eyes. And that's the way Eliab was. He said, who did you leave those few sheep with in the wilderness? I know thy pride. Now, this is David's big brother talking to him. I know thy pride and the haughtiness of thine heart. For thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. David had been sent to the wilderness, had been sent out to the pasture to tend to those few sheep for so many years. He hadn't complained. He hadn't criticized. He hadn't talked about his brother. He hadn't complained to his daddy, why am I wasting my life out here? He hadn't done any of that. He had done it to the best of his ability. But to his brother, that was pride. That was his brother's perspective. But see, God was training David out in the wilderness, and we're going to see later how he did it. But do not go by somebody else's perspective of you. It can even be a relative. This was David's relative. This was his brother, his flesh and blood. But David didn't need to go by that. Then it goes on, and it says, and David's servant. So let's go down to verse 34. And this is David's perspective of his past. This is what David got. And I know I'm jumping you around, but I'm keeping you in the same chapter. Verse 34 says, and David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his sheep. This is David talking. This is David talking about what he has done, how he has gotten his perspective in order, how he has stayed focused on God, how he has built his resume that is now going to end up being used to elect him king. He says, and David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing as he has defied the armies of the living God. I did it to the lion and the bear. Who is this man? Who is this? He ain't nothing but a thug. Bigger they are, the harder they fall. Ain't no biggie. If I did it to the lion and the bear and went in their mouth and got it out, what do you think I can do to this uncircumcised thing here? But his focus was, and his intentions were, why am I doing all this? It's not so I can come out of the field and be the big man on campus. It's because he's doing this for the living God.